Hey everyone, welcome back to the Emergence Show, where we explore the future of immersive tech, brand storytelling, and creative innovation with the people actually shaping it. If you have ever wondered why so many XR campaigns look cool but don't convert, or why some brands quietly scale immersive experiences while others burn through the budget and nothing to show, then today's episode is absolutely for you. Our guest is Matt Daly, a product strategist, creative technologist, and the brain behind immersive launches for various companies. He has helped companies grow from 0 to 7 figure ARR, architected experiences seen by hundreds of millions, and created a KPI framework that redefines what success in immersive actually means. Today, we're diving into why most metaverse projects fail and what makes them actually work. How to use XR to drive real business outcomes, not just buzz. What cultural moments like GDC and South by Southwest teach us about launching creative tech, and how Gen AI, WebXR, and emotional storytelling are shaping the playbook for brands. We will open up to your questions later in the show, so drop them in the chat anytime, tag your friends, and stay tuned until the end. And let's get into it. Hey, Matt, thank you so much for being here.
Nico, thank you very much for having me. I'm a big fan, and it's an honor to be here.
Honor is mine. Thank you so much. I'm so excited. You have a lot of great content prepared for us, which is amazing. And let's get started with hearing your story. Tell us a little bit about your background, how you got into this space, where your experiences come from, what's your passion, all of that.
Sure. Okay, so the brief skinny is I started my first company graduating university many years ago, and it kind of took me on a path that was very, I think, atypical and fairly bootstrapped to this day, with a few minor, very cushy exceptions. My first company was called Metaversatility, and we were just like 22-year-olds with laptops and the ability to build in Second Life, which was, turns out, a rarefied knowledge. So we were working instantly with brands like Toyota and PricewaterhouseCoopers, and Obama did like a stream in one of our worlds. And then we branched out into PlayStation Home, helped build that with Catherine De Leon and her team. Stuff on MetaPlace with Raph Koster, a whole bunch of platforms, sort of like a virtual world boom that we were a part of. I then went on more firmly into the games industry, and I ran product marketing for a MMO middleware technology called Big World, which we then sold to Wargaming. So the publisher of World of Tanks has probably like 200 million registered users by this point. Big World was like all about huge concurrency, so that was kind of like, that's been a super big theme to this day for me. Sort of like, how do you get lots of people in the same space actively? And then at Wargaming, I spent like 8 years as part of a group called Special Projects with my colleagues Alex Bobko and Dasha and Gavin, working with the CEO Victor and a number of other stakeholders to explore sort of like the bleeding edge of technology, particularly immersive stuff like machine learning and AI and stuff like that, which we'll get into, is sort of like the beginning of how do you quantify these like very sort of exploratory things and make them actually like grounded in some kind of measurable reality. So I did that for like 7, 8 years, just traveled the globe doing that. Just a lot of crazy Indiana Jones meets Neil Stephenson stuff with, like Google and Microsoft and Dolph Lundgren. It was like kind of crazy times. And then for like the past 5 years, since pandemic, basically, I have alternated between running my own consultancy called Banana Foundry Collective, and I've run product for a couple different SaaS startups in the enterprise collaboration space, Vatum and AA. And I work with brands now, consulting on go-to-market strategy, product development, product strategy, storytelling. I have my fingers in probably too many pies at this point, but that's pretty much me.
Well, amazing. I mean, I think a lot of us who are very passionate about these new technologies and this space are trying to do so many things. So that's really amazing. And I want to say thank you to our amazing audience who are here live with us. Ian, Felipe, Shadi, Jean, and everyone else who's tuning in. Please say hi so we know you're here. And we're grateful for your engagement as we are talking about different engagements. So let's get into the conversation. I know Matt has created a great presentation for us, which I'm presenting now. So the first question is, you've said immersive tech often gets treated as a marketing cost center. What's the biggest misconception brands have about XR and metaverse projects?
Yeah, so I'm sharing this image, this single solitary image, because it's really emblematic of the beginning of a pattern that I've seen repeated a lot when it comes to emerging technology, particularly immersive technology, projects and products. This is a screenshot of American Apparel, which is kind of like a hot brand for like, hipsters like back in like the mid 2000s, right? And they built an actual store that's kind of like a one-to-one twin space of their stores like in Brooklyn or wherever. And the sort of like, immediately sort of our response as builders was sort of like kind of like, why? Um, and it's not like there's no reason for it, that there's a great reason for it, but the confusing and tricky part can be that because these experiences, particularly in full-on immersive virtual worlds, tend to adopt some of the sort of like skeuomorphic norms and modalities and design around the actual built environment that we live and breathe in like every day, it can get really confused as to like why they're doing it. I'm still seeing it to this day. Stuff in like Decentraland or Roblox or a lot of these platforms that are doing a lot of the same things that have been done for a while. Um, the reason that they're doing them can get confused even by stakeholders. We can often lose sight of the fact that people were not inside of American Apparel and Second Life because it was a better user experience, right? Like we have a long, super well laid path of user experience design that is emblematic of like a direct to consumer e-commerce shopping or Amazon. That's like a really good system for solving your problem of I want to shop and find stuff and I want it to like find it quickly. I want it to be the cheapest it can be and I want it to get it to me like immediately and I don't want to think 1% more than I need to about this thing. This is absolutely not that. In fact, this is completely orthogonal to that. It's like walking your avatar from like, your virtual bedroom to get in your virtual self-driving car, to walk in a virtual door and talk to a virtual sales assistant who's probably just like a clippy AI agent at some point, to walk over and physically try on each shirt is a terrible e-commerce UX, right? But the thing is that we can forget that the reason that you do these things is hopefully part of a sort of horizontally vertically integrated like campaign structure where
Right.
this is the lead for like dreaming and aspiring and is not a transaction, it's not a point of transaction. And so if you try to compete, if you try to go to war with a performance advertising team who's hardcore e-commerce revenue sharks, you will lose every time. And I've seen these projects lose every time that they try to do war on the wrong footing. You do war on every other footing, is like immersion, brand representation, connection with other human beings. That's why you do these things, not so that you can virtually try on your virtual t-shirt. Yeah.
That's actually an interesting point because I mean, I kind of agree, but there is this company like Obsessed. I'm sure you know about them, Obsessed AR, and they
Yeah,
got
yeah.
acquired by Infinity. And they actually, prepared a lot of reports, and they were one of the early players in this space of virtual commerce. And their numbers always show that they are actually improving conversion rates significantly. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I built for a recent last year. I spent a good amount of time with one of my teams building out this immersive web product that is very similar to Obsess, that I'll try to drop directly into this slide right here so that we can actually watch it. But basically, what Obsess and Emporia are doing well are that they are first of all using 2D web modalities as a way of engaging, right?
Yeah.
That's like a really big one. So like this is the video I'm talking about. So they're using 2D web modalities like we did with this product that is still in progress, right? This is the Apple Vision Pro version of it. But what it's doing is like it's using web technology, so it's instantly accessible, and it's like flattened, super accessible, runs on any device, photospheres essentially, maybe video spheres if you're lucky. But the more and more you add to it, the harder it is to use, and the more frictional it is, and the more constricted your funnel gets. I don't have I don't have access to their data. All I know is that one thing that I do know is that you can tell a story with data in many different ways, and I know that Obsess was acquired by Infinite Reality for a reason. It's not because it's like valueless. And I think that the telling part of it, looking at it from the outside, is that what they've done right is super accessible and the lightest sort of sense of immersion, leading into like just the basic sense of it. No co-presence, no WASD, move my avatar around. And that's basically what we also built into this custom platform. This is what you're looking at right here is basically, it's like a WordPress backend with some like really light front-end WebGL stuff, right? The lightest possible touch you can do so that you can create some novelty, shake people up, cut through the noise. I do believe in that. But I think if you compared Walmart's e-commerce numbers that come from performance advertising, like all of their spends on Meta and then ad networks, and you compare that with something like Obsess, I don't believe that you would, I mean, I don't want to speak out of turn, but I don't believe that you would see anything. I think it would just like completely blow them out of the water. And I think, but at the same time, one thing that's important to note is that nobody on Walmart's marketing team or communications team is driving any earned media off of people clicking like mad through conversion to like buy, egg deliveries. Like there's no story to tell there. On the other hand, you have something like Obsess, which is just all over Walmart's collateral, which is the right stance and posture to take, in my opinion.
Right, and I think another factor is that when you are running these pilots that they usually do, they are bringing a type of people that are very much more likely to buy something because they are early adopters, and they're people that have been supporting Obsess or these brands that Obsess works with. And so that's kind of a biased process. You're not really tapping into the real audience of e-commerce when you're launching this type of pilots. So I think that improve of conversions might have another reason beyond just how good the tool is.
Yeah, and I think we're going to talk more about that when it comes to like meeting audiences where they are, for sure.
Yeah, let's get into the next question, but thank you for that. And thanks for all the engagement in the chat. Ian says, understand cultural cohesion and understand your algorithm, best case user experiences. And yeah, let's get into the next question. How do you define real ROI in this space? What KPIs actually matter in your opinion?
Yeah. So, direct conversion through e-commerce is not it. I mean, I believe that it can accompany, but I think ultimately that is a story that's being told almost as PR, if you could say PR. It's a radical reduction of what it actually is. But the reason that you're talking about Obsess's numbers about conversion, and that's even interesting, is because it's wrapped into a larger story that is this visual spatial representation of the brand. It's experiential, and it most importantly cuts through the noise. So what you're seeing here is like an example of a project that I did at Wargaming, and I'll run you're gonna have to also like forgive me, is that like this is like an insight into my brain, is like just ADD nonsense, and it kind of really annoys people sometimes, but it's the way that I think and work. So there's just gonna be a lot of motion on the screen. And so, the project on the right is World of Tanks AR Spectate. And it was like a super futuristic thing that we'll talk about shortly. And on the left, you'll see some of the other projects that we did, which were stuff on Microsoft HoloLens, stuff on Google AR Core, working with them to launch that platform. And the way that we started to make sense of why as an organization are we even doing any of these things, was for two reasons. One was so that we ourselves understood and could evaluate ourselves on, so that we're not just sort of exploring like fun, cool tech for the sake of it, which is a huge trap that as technologists, like we can really get caught up in, and kind of like go to Augmented World Expo and just like really rub each other's shoulders and like just be so high on this like innovation thing. Where at the end of the day, you're doing this for like somebody at the other end of that communication spectrum. So like the KPIs that we would set for that, and so that we were working with pretty much every department inside of wargaming. So we also needed at least one stakeholder in each of those departments to understand the why of why are we even doing this? Because yeah, they could be dragged to the thing to like cooperate with it, but it's going to suck and it's just not going to be representative of the brand. So the stuff that we would do is we would do these combination of storytelling sort of like periodically. We'd try to do them quarterly or more frequently if we could, which was like, how are we doing with these projects and what are they doing for us? So like integrations of marketing. So like, this is collateral. I'm showing you this video, which is like, 90% of the audience that actually were touched by these experiences were touched in a context that's just like this. It's just me at a conference or Mashable picking it up or BBC picking it up, and it's all traditional video. And you really must not sleep. Do not sleep on traditional video and GIFs. Like GIFs, I probably use more GIFs than I do like augmented reality, because it's telling the people in this chat right now and whoever watches this, the basics of the story so that it's aspirational and they get the touch point. Because even these headsets, people are not going to put them on. We've seen that. So marketing collateral integrations, and like compare against the performance of comparable collateral, traditional images, key art, all that stuff, community sentiment. And you can learn this if you're talking to your users. We had millions of users. Like every project we did was hardcore leaning into live ops campaigns and community engagement virtually, and at big shows like Gamescom and Tokyo Game Show and stuff like that. So talk to your audiences and include them. Social sharing. So it's like, this is typical like promotional stuff. Marketing campaign specific lists, so you can A/B test against it. So like Obsessed talking about Walmart, transactions. They're probably doing some A/B testing versus like in a small sample environment. Is this better or is this worse? How is it doing for us? Then there's early seats at the table is like a really big one for us. We were demonstrating a belief and a sort of fealty to the mission, and we were at the table with main stakeholders at Google, all their spatial compute, a lot of their machine learning and AI way early on. The same thing for Microsoft, A&E and History Channel. So like from a business development standpoint, you can make smart bets on building alliances, and it's not just the big ones. It's also sort of brand to brand alliances are huge. We wouldn't have done so wargaming is one of the biggest historical heritage brands in entertainment. And it wasn't until we built this thing that we could actually get in the door at A&E and do a partnership project and a show on History Channel. Then there's earned media, which is PR. That's the most hocus pocus of all hocus pocuses, but you must try to quantify. I have 400 million, points of engagement over, these campaigns, whatever that means. You need to like measure and then remeasure. And it's all about, even if it's hocus pocus, if you use the same methodology for measurement, you'll see whether it's doing better or worse. It's really simple. And then there's like R&D toward commercialization. Anybody that's in here that's doing like early tech adoption stuff, you are probably following some kind of path that's like, you're either doing it for attention or money. And in early tech adoption, you're usually doing it for attention. And that's a quote from Jeremy Ballinger, who runs business intelligence at Wargaming, actually. And so like our path for this is like a 7-year path toward building, basically a venture studio for AR gaming. And we came all the way to the point of a green light. And that's because we were doing, the hard yards and doing them sensically for many years.
Love that. I hope everyone is taking notes because these are really gold nuggets that you just shared. Thank you so much. And so the overall business funnel from awareness to monetization, I would imagine for this immersive experience is a bit different. If you can walk us through like how it's different for this industry, that would be great.
Sure. So, you're, again, Jeremy Ballinger is one of the smartest people I know. He told me many years ago, you're either doing something for attention or you're doing it for money.
Mm-hmm.
So I've kind of thinking about this these days in this sort of spectrum of attention to money. I don't want to talk about e-commerce because I mean, just kind of like a little bit, frankly, like it's not super exciting to me. Like I think there's a lot of smart people working on that, and I just skipped this. Where did I go? Yeah. So I have three examples here, and I'll say F1 AR is a thing that I just did like 3 months ago. Relatively small project, quick, but it was like high impact. It was like Lewis Hamilton. You're seeing it full screen now, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So Lewis Hamilton came and the king gave his like blessing and just a lot of like touch points. It's like the central location. It's like a little mini game on the tabletop. This is pure attention. This is like if you want to draw a through line between ticket sales and this, like you've already failed. Just don't do that. That's not the point of it. Later down the line, maybe yes, but those are paths toward commercialization of products that actually have measurable engagement points, like games, for instance. Or if you took this, what you could measure is, and what is F1 I believe is going to be doing shortly, if we can continue this engagement, is they're going to take the collateral that came from this and build it into their marketing campaign pipelines. This is also super important because when you're talking about funnel, like there's no universal funnel. There's a sales funnel, there's a marketing funnel, there's even like a communications PR engagement funnel. So
Right.
you have to understand who in the organization you're working with and talking to, and essentially what metrics are they evaluated on that keep them from getting fired or make them seen as being successful by their bosses, right? So if you can take something like F1 AR and you can make it something that plugs into the existing workflows that they have, so like please don't send them like USDZ files to like launch on ARKit. It's like, no, don't do that. Send them a zip press kit, media kit that has like screenshots, GIFs, and videos, and links to like YouTube videos that they can, unlisted YouTube videos, so that they can plan, so that you can make their job as easy as possible to take this super dope, immersive thing that, many people, relatively speaking, engage with on site, but that you can get 10, 20, 40, 60x the amount of people touched by it. And then at the end of the day, the energy and time that was put into this thing is amplified by the force multiplier of traditional marketing, right? So make sure that you're not just stopping there. I keep clicking and it keeps sending me away. So make sure you're not stopping there.
And that's such a good point. Yeah, a lot of times we see people do a lot of physical experiential marketing and they miss the point of amplifying it. So really good point.
Thanks. The so now you're seeing the full, yes.
Yes.
So then I'll say the two on the right are a little bit more about financial outcomes that you can draw direct corollaries to. The one in the middle is the Polyphonic Spree Dome experience that I helped bring to South by this year. I'm a board advisor at South by Southwest, in case that wasn't said. I've been on the board for like 15 years. So I often like, I'll spot projects that I think are really, really amazing, and I'll just kind of help them along a little bit more as an advocate. So I did that with Polyphonic Spree and Cinephonic, and they actually ended up winning Best in Show. But it's not just like an immersive art project. Like it certainly was born out of that, but they have a real business plan that involves live ticketing, merchandise, and something that is like similar to music. So this is a immersive dome experience for album launches that tries to unlock additional revenue sources for artists, labels, publishers, etc. So, pretty direct one-to-one monetization, you can evaluate based off of that. The final thing I'll show is an example of some of my work with enterprise collaboration inside of virtual spaces. So this is Vadim. It's a company that I worked with running product for their immersive Vadim spaces, and we did stuff like with Volvo and all these other things. And besides these sort of like consumer-facing launches, what I was kind of more interested in, bullish on, and maybe it's because I'd just done a bunch of those previously, and this was more new to me, was like, how do these companies like the PricewaterhouseCoopers or the Intels or Diageos of the world, how do they evaluate the monetary bottom line impact from these projects based off of essentially cost efficiencies? So kind of like what Katmai is doing right now, it's like, it's not new, but I think that's another category that shouldn't be slept on, is like the immersive collaboration category is like, you're talking to that at that point to a combination of stakeholders, and it's kind of like super powerful if you can get them all in the same room. You're talking to CMOs, CEOs, certainly CFOs and COOs, right? There's a lot of the C-suite can be brought to care about this, because it's sort of like cost efficiencies from reduction of, like we did projects with like COP24, COP25, the sustainability project and association, and it was like, just from a sustainability goals and charter standpoint, as well as cost reduction, each one of these like executive trips is $9,000 to $15,000, just each one of them. That's one person. So if you can reduce carbon footprint, you can reduce just even one of those trips by a year, you have meaningful cost efficiencies. And then all the other stuff I just talked about communication and PR and earned media, to the extent that you can, then you're getting additional dividends from that activity based off of having done that. Just record it, turn on your camcorder, just keep compulsively recording things. And I found that works quite well.
Wow, amazing. Different use cases, different ROIs and KPIs, really insightful. Thank you for sharing. We have a few questions, if you can get into them before we go to the next section. Chris says, any plans to utilize AI to accelerate goals and results? Do you want to talk about AI now, or what do you think, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, so there could be a whole separate talk about AI. In fact, I did 2 talks about AI at South by Southwest a few weeks ago. So I have a lot of thoughts. I'll say from a super practical standpoint, as a product manager and talking to smart people that are like, like analysts, I think where AI is going to make the most immediate difference is just going to be background processes that end consumers and even your stakeholders and users in a, like this, for instance, is like Diageo getting all their staff together. Like most of these people are not going to care, the 2025 version of this, most of these people are not going to care beyond their own personal use to like help them accelerate their thought processes, I believe. And so automation processes around the product management workflow, very essentially including the ability to actually rapidly prototype stuff with these vibe coding platforms like Replit and Cursor. I'm not an engineer, and I've been able to build apps and immediately see how they're going to fail, which is like the number one superpower, I think, in venture startups and even internal initiatives inside of organizations, is like, before you even go to your boss with a thing, just go build it like real quick and like put it in front of 3 people, and you can either learn very quickly and early how to pivot, or you can double down on the thing, because it's like you have the beginnings of lightning in a bottle.
Wow, so true. Yeah, prototyping and doing the proof of concept is such an important step. Thank you for that. And next question from Felipe: how do you balance emotional storytelling with business outcomes in XR?
I mean, I don't, Felipe, I don't think you really do. I think you triple, quadruple down on the emotional aspect, because those are the 2 feet that you're standing on when it comes to, and it's not just immersive. It's just, it's like even like I brought Maya from Sesame out on stage at both my South by talks, and there's nothing immersive XR about that, but it was like so emotionally evocative, positive and negative, that like I like super leaned into it, and I wanted to see what people's responses were. And it was I got numerous points of feedback that it was like some of the best content that anybody's like some of these audience members saw at South by, and I don't think they were just fluffing me up. I think it was like genuinely impactful. So I would say quadruple down on your emotional storytelling, and then just ensure the rest of your ducks are in a row from the standpoint of achievable, measurable KPIs. And I believe you can build that architecture around anything that is emotionally evocative for human beings, even something as dry as running a design sprint with Ernst and Young inside of a virtual 3D space. It's about as dry as it can get, but you're still there connecting with each other as human beings.
Wow, this is the best answer I've gotten for this question ever in this show.
Nice.
Because, like a lot of times we just prioritize the money side, but reality is like we're all human, as you said, and we remember and we get activated by these emotional connections. So that
Yeah,
is such a good advice. Thank you so much. So let's get into the
sure.
next segment, which is consulting and how you've been helping to scale innovation with brands. So if you can tell us, kind of how your process looks like. What's the step one when you get involved with a company or brand?
This is super simple, and like my favorite part, honestly, is getting to know the humans behind the brand. So like getting to know you, Nico.
Yes.
Um, for instance, like when we were able to walk the show floor at GDC, I feel like my understanding of your energy and who you are and what you care about as a human being in that 15-minute walk that we took when I just randomly found you was like more impactful than 20, phone calls. So if you possibly can get together with the humans, if you can do it in person, that's great. If you can't, then do what Nico and I did, which is like goof around and turn on your AR filters and don't be afraid to be silly. And, let your, one thing I would say for sure is that famous video clip of like the guy that's trying to like continue doing the CNBC talk while his son is like, his 3-year-old is like crawling
Yes.
in the room or something,
Yes.
but he's completely trying to pretend it's not happening. It's like, don't do that. Like, let my son burst into the room. He may do it actually for this show. I've actually locked the door, but my son burst into a meeting yesterday and just joined the meeting. Let your dog come in, let your cat come in, let people in your lives, and just I don't know, be human. This is going to be way more important in the coming years with automation. And there's a book I just read that talks about this, and I'm forgetting what it's called, but it's essentially like just be uniquely human with your people.
Very good point. Yeah, I mean, relationships are everything. That makes us make those decisions that maybe logically immediately don't make sense, and we don't know all the answers of why we're doing it. But like, we're doing it because our gut says that, and that's our AI.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
so, it makes sense. Thank you so much for that as well. And this was a really cool video you captured. Cool. So, what patterns have you seen in the brands that get it right and they're doing the right things and right choices?
Yeah, I have a lot of responses to this, but I'm also going to start curtailing my response length a little bit so we can get through the material. But like, I think this question that you asked me or that you posed to me earlier on before this, the thing that's been on my mind the most is this talk that Cory Doctorow did. He's a Electronic Frontiers Foundation luminary, is just like an amazing thinker. And he did this talk at South by, and I made this piece of art that was like a a finger pressing a finger pressing a finger, infinitely down. It's like turtles all the way down until somebody's actually doing the thing. I would say the the key sort of like ingredients are limited stakeholders. So don't have like this crazy committee of people. You won't get anything done, particularly with these like lean, mysterious, because you have to explain 6 things in 6 different ways to 6 different people, and that becomes 36 different explanations. And I think I'm pretty good at stakeholder management, but that exceeds my ability. So bring in like a strike team, be like minimal. That's what I do as a consultant, is I try to be low impact and get the cost efficiencies and the speed to learning and all that stuff. Um, try not to be redundant. If you already have an innovation team, don't go hire an agency that has an innovation team. You're just going to be stepping on other people's toes. And I've seen this happen more often than I would have thought a few years ago that I would end up seeing. Um, be super customer obsessed. That sounds like a, you know, just like a fortune cookie of like product management, but it continues to be true. Just talk with your customers like a whole lot, and your stakeholders. Make sure your metrics are achievable, and you know, the role of a consultant like me is often confused, and some of our superpowers include coming in and being a little bit of a punching bag and a little bit of a Switzerland that has no dog in the race, like no dog in the fight. And we the best of us, I think, really excel at like the strategy stuff, but also make sure that your person that you're hiring to like help your strategy also knows how to push the button, like that they push the button themselves a few times, not that they just kind of like, it's like the guy in Aliens that's like, you know, how many drops have you done? He's like 36 simulated. And it's like, oh God, you've never actually done a drop before. Make sure the guy's done a drop, or girl, or person.
Yes. Yeah, a lot of times we're building experiences or, you know, anything that we're not a customer ourselves, and then we're missing the point. And just being an audience ourselves, that really helps. That's such a good advice. Thank you.
Sure.
Awesome. And how do you work with the large organizations? Because it's ideal if they're small and you know, they don't have to go through a lot of bureaucracy. But how do you manage it when you have to kind of follow different requirements and create that business alignment?
Yeah, I think it's just the Goldilocks of ambition and expectation management. Don't do something boring. Don't do something impossible, like truly impossible. They will just set everybody up for failure. I think it's the same KPIs we talked about from like my wargaming days that continue to be relevant to this day. Just ensure that you're making sense of what it is, making sense of this sort of like ambiguity that's just going to be part and parcel to the stuff that you're doing. And I think that it ultimately comes down to like the people in the organization. Like you could be talking to a whole bunch of people inside of Ernst and Young, but like Shubra and Evan and their team were just like they were just like the right combination of skill sets and dreamers and practical people for us to do some like really amazing stuff during the Vadim times. And they're just, you know, they're like a startup within the organization, and that's what my group was within wargaming. So I know what it's like to be on that other side of the table. So it's usually, again, kind of comes down to the people and setting things up for success.
Right. And when we are kind of exploring different brands, or brands come to you for, you know, advice in terms of who should be working on immersive tech or do activations and so on, what is your advice? Like, do you think every brand should do immersive activation or project, or there are some brands that should stay away from it?
I mean, I don't think anybody should stay away. I think the stay away part is like a little bit of how we kind of get a little bit of bad rap as like emerging technologists, is that we can be a little bit precious about who is and isn't part of the cool kids club. And I know that that's not what you believe, Nico, but that's something that I've just seen kind of, we can also be kind of like academic about it. And it's just kind of a turnoff for like, you know, human beings who just want to like get something interesting or useful done. I would say the brands who do it right can be any brand really, but I think some of the superpowers for enterprise, right? As enterprise as an example, are, you know, the Ernst and Young team that we worked with you know, Shubra and her team, for instance. And I'm talking about Shubra Kathuria, in case she sees this. Like, you know, her and Evan and that group, they just had the right kind of enthusiasm, curiosity, you know. And I think on my side, my product team and my customer success team, for instance, who worked with them a lot, we're also like not trying to be these big gatekeepers of rarefied knowledge, you know, which you can get wrapped up in. So I think any brand can benefit from it. The benefit also right now is that a lot of these tools are super accessible and don't require big budgets, and you can try anything. Like I think Katmai is like $12 a month or something, or it's $50 a month. It's very, very cheap to try. So if you want to do virtual office, just like sign up for Capgemini for like a month and just like look. And if it doesn't take, it doesn't take. So you can be anybody doing that. You could be a department inside of a university doing it if you wanted to. Then from the consumer facing side, I would say I didn't quite get to the point of being able to record a GIF of these guys. But man, these guys, this is one of our activations at Gamescom, is like one of the biggest game conferences in the world in Germany every year. And we had Wargaming used to do these like massive booths, and we would usually be center stage with our projects as like showcases, which is amazing for us to be able to literally observe how people actually engage with them, completely unfettered, good, bad, etc. But like any consumer facing IPs that have like communities that care even slightly, you're already a leg ahead of many others who have not cultivated that. So in the case of Wargaming, we had these two dudes who I still don't even know who they were, but if you look at the video at some point, they were just going nuts with this AR tabletop thing, and it was amazing to see. And all you need to do is put them in a position to experience, and like someone just said a second ago in the chat, like give them a reason to be silly and kind of act out. They were being very locomotive and just really putting their bodies into it. It was really amazing to see.
Amazing. So basically, every brand can get involved. It's just about how they're doing it and how they're defining the KPIs and how they're applying the approach and making the right selection of partners and so on. So that was great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I also like I work with I'll come in and just provide advice to like a university department I just did at a university in Texas that wanted to do some VR stuff. Is like I'll just come and talk to you for an hour. Like you don't have to pay me. You don't have to set like put me on a retainer or something. Just like it lifts all boats, I feel.
Well, that's very kind of you. And yeah, I think what I meant more in terms of like there's some brands that just do it for the sake of following trends and getting PR. Right. In that sense, maybe if that's all you care about, maybe this is not worth the full investment and everything. But if you actually do it for the right reasons, then it makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. And we just talked about this AR experience, and let's get into the AR segment because I know John and Ian and other folks in the chat are very much passionate and building in the augmented reality space. So can you tell us about this tabletop AR tank battle that you did for History Channel? What made it so successful?
Yeah, I think it was because the background is like we were exploring cloud rendering technology at the time and AR. So we thought, how could we mash these two things together? And so we ended up building this this stack that basically streams World of Tanks, a PC game, into ARKit on iPads at the time. This was like maybe 2018, so 7 years ago. Wow. And what we were able to achieve was just this like just truly wild level of visual fidelity more than anything, which really made it's like you still can't I have still not to this day 7 years later seen anything that pops like this does, like super stable, just super high-end streamed content, highly responsive. Like it's an exquisite piece of technology. And so I think in that case, while we had long-term goals that were about commercialization and exploring implications with partners in the streaming space, the first thing to do and the first set of KPIs that this was based off of was like, how can we make the most amazing AR thing that anybody has ever seen? Basically, like simple, right? And then how do we just tell that story using the playbook that we already established with previous collaborations to just spam the world with like videos of it, not it itself, but videos of it. And that's what led to, I don't know, probably one of the most successful earned media PR campaigns, social virality campaigns in that company's history. And it was because we were unscrupulous and we were uncompromising in our like vision for like, let's do this. Let's get like a really tiny team together who is like really smart, media, technology, project management, marketing. And like, let's get those 5 to 6 people together and make sure that we just make this thing as amazing as possible, as quickly as possible. And that's what we did. And so you still can't find anything as detailed, in my opinion. And that's why outlets like Mashable just were like champing at the bit to pick it up. And we just got crazy amounts of interest. And the wargaming business, the B2B booth at Gamescom in the back halls, we were so stacked with press that we were doing double demos. Like we were bringing multiple journalists in at the same time, or writers or influencers, to like look at it, because it was so crazy what we were doing. And that for that, it was like, I think we were just very honest about what we were doing. This was not going to be a thing that was going to launch that year or the next year at all. It was about driving attention. So again, you're either doing something for attention or you're doing it for money. And then all the other KPIs that we talked about previously did apply to this, and it did get carried forward with that set of KPIs about as far as it could until the streaming boom kind of imploded on itself, as it has done multiple times since then. Yeah, game streaming is weird.
Well, I wish we had more time to get into all of these great points that you're bringing up, but we only have 15 minutes, and I want to get into different topics that we want to discuss. But great question, John, and everyone who is putting in the chat. We're just going to be expediting the chat a little bit. So in terms of emotional resonance with tech-savvy audience, a lot of times we're building for, these different developers, technical folks, and even gamers. How do you engage their emotions?
This will be a simple one. There are many ways, but I would say what do games do best is they give you agency and put you in the world. Do the same thing. Put the player in the world. So this top left thing is a thing I'm working on right now, not officially for PUBG. PUBG was just a test. This is a stack of open source Gen AI tools that we're putting together for some very cool stuff that I hope to be able to talk about soon. And the thing on the bottom right is an image that stuck with me for the last like multiple years, since a Gamescom where we did this thing with Dolph Lundgren, where you kind of become a tanker, you make this video, and you, or your family in this case, have an opportunity to be silly, just like the person in the chat said. So we literally put people inside of this battle against Dolph Lundgren, and the kind of like, just the kind of elation and like emotional reaction, and these families coming in, and friends and individuals, people who might normally be like a little bit clammed up, even have an opportunity to enter the magic circle, even for 5 minutes, and act out. People are very excited to do that thing if you just give them a reason to do it.
Wow. So it doesn't have to be very complex. You can just, come up with some ideas and give it a try, and you'll be surprised how people react. Amazing.
Yeah, particularly now with the Gen AI tools that are out there, it's crazy.
Yep. So let's talk about, you have been on the board with South by, and you have done some other activations, I believe, in GDC. What's the role of the cultural moments in making the immersive work actually land?
So South by is a simulation of what could be, I think, a lot of the time when it comes to the activation stuff. The part of the board that I serve on is specifically around XR and gaming. And, I think, this example here is a thing by the Smartphone Orchestra called Ancestors. And it kind of like hacks phone use to be something that doesn't divide our attention and, drive ourselves into individual bubbles, but instead creates these prompts and icebreakers that are based around a narrative about intergenerational impact and trauma and stuff like that, but gives people a reason to connect with each other. So I think that what people end up learning at South by from these activations is like a amplified, hyper-focused version of what could be for a wider audience. And if it doesn't end up in the wider audience, then it gets told via videos like the one I'm sharing now.
Amazing. So it's, again, another way of doing proof of concept and learning and iterating. Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. So what advice do you have for brands that want to invest in immersive tech? Shadi also asks, like, if a brand just starting with immersive, what's the safest first project to test the waters?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge fan of web technologies. I'm really bullish on Vibers that they're working on. Both of my SaaS startups, like the one here that's called Double A, and Katmai. I keep referencing Katmai, but because I'm a fan. Um, anything web-based, depending on what it is, usually hopscotches like way past a lot of barriers to entry from a usability standpoint. So I would say, without knowing what the goals are for what they're referring to, I would say web-based is the way.
Yeah, it makes sense because we already have access to it, and it's just elevating what they're already using, and give them a different perspective. So,
Yeah.
very good point. Awesome. And so let's get into your predictions. What's next for this industry after you being for several years doing so many different projects, working with so many different brands and companies? What do you think is really happening? What are you excited about?
Yeah. My thing that I'm excited about is dolls, dress up dolls. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, what I think is going to, the thing that's top of mind for me is the impact that AI is going to have on the sort of unit economics of creativity, I guess. Um, there's going to be a lot of kind of McDonaldification of content, right? There's going to be a lot of like fast food style content, stuff that we might call slop right now, but I don't think all of it is slop. I just think it fits a purpose. And I think what it's already creating is sort of an inflationary effect on content, visual, oral, interactive. And I think what brands and um, companies can and should be leaning into are the sort of like, I think that physical, ephemeral, human created, virtual even, will be more fetishized and more valued because you'll be able to see that that was a thing that was made mostly or entirely by a human being. And I'll reverse for 1 second to the previous slide because the thing on the top left is Raf Koster's and his team's upcoming MMO that's in pre-alpha called Stars Reach. That's all about UGC and building. So stuff like this platform, Roblox, Fortnite, UEFN, stuff like that. A lot of these platforms, I think that some of the crazy stuff that people build and the experiences they build are often like just strange, and they can sometimes feel like they don't have a point. But I feel like the reason I'm gravitating so much to this game, as an example, because I've become hooked on it, is because there's all these fingerprints of human beings all over it. Imperfect, maybe not fully thought through testaments to human creativity that were probably not, AI probably has very little to do with it. So that's virtual. And then the thing I'll leave this on is like, one of my biggest takeaways from South by Southwest was this Mexican pharmacy brand called Farmacias Similares, which is really famous pharmacy brand in Mexico. I spent a lot of time in Mexico, and I'm really familiar with it. But I always thought of it as a very Mexican brand that doesn't really have like a lot of relevance in the States. But they do have this mascot called Dr. Simi, and Dr. Simi is this guy that you see people dressed up on street corners dancing in this huge sort of like Mickey Mouse style costume. So this company surprised me. Even I'm even on the board of South by. They surprised me by having probably the most engaged booth that I saw at South by show floor or the expo, that was based essentially entirely around sitting down around this big round table, and it was just an arts and crafts table. It was like these dolls that you could like put rhinestones on and paint their fingernails, and there were people more engaged with that than, I mean, many of the other highly super high tech projection mapping, motion capturing, whatever, right? I think it's not just because it was a relaxing vibe space, but I think that it's people are maybe going to be increasingly hungry for tactile, hands-on, like you were saying, simple stuff. And it even led to me making a connection with this person here who was a sort of like orphaned part of our board structure that didn't know any other board members. And we were just talking, and I discovered she was also on the board of advisors, and I brought her into our WhatsApp group. So there was like a real long lasting point of human connection made there. And all we were doing was sitting next to each other, like putting rhinestones on a doll. And now like my brand affinity toward Dr. Simi is like 100x suddenly. Like I'm a Dr. Simi stan. And all they did was basically bring a bunch of dolls to South by. So there's something really important to kind of like observe there and keep watching, I think.
I love it. This is like the Crocs. You can customize, personalize, and co-create. That's what this younger generation is all about, and also even us. We would love to customize and call it ours, because you can be
Yeah.
proud of this. Like now, you made it look better, and that's such a memorable experience. Amazing example. Thank you so much for sharing. And I keep coming back to this idea that you're sharing, that it's all about simple, authentic, human focused strategies, not really anything super complex. It's just being mindful of why you're doing it, and then work with the right people to make the right decisions, and it doesn't have to be complex.
Yeah,
Really
totally
inspiring.
agree with that.
Thank you so much. And I want to thank our amazing audience for all their amazing comments and questions. Maybe we can get to a few questions before we wrap.
Sure.
I think we had a question. Have you seen any recent campaigns that nailed cultural timing and impact?
Recent campaigns.
I mean, a
I
lot of
think
those that you mentioned are great. So maybe
I'm
anything.
trying to think of others that are not these, but honestly, I think that the approach that this pharmacy chain brought to this example, I think it's like they're trying to do some like a Herculean task of like with a lean approach launching a brand in a direct consumer pharmacy brand in the States. That's like when I hear that, and if that came to me as an RFP, I'd be like, okay, well, let's talk about scope because that sounds big.
Yeah.
And I think that they made a crazy amount of inroads by spending intelligently and bringing something. Here's the other part about it is like authenticity. Is like when I was sitting down at their booth, it wasn't like mariachis and like chimichangas and Cinco de Mayo and tequila. It was like very Mexican in my experience of what Mexico actually is. And it was like everything from the soundtrack of playlist they're playing was like Mexican music that maybe actual Mexicans listen to, like Natalia Lafourcade and stuff like that. It wasn't like, it wasn't like mariachi music. So I think like authentic voices from the brand and from the place that they come from can just like do circles around more pretentious, overly thought out activations. So I think that's why that one stuck with me and created such a really completely shifted the way that I see this brand. I used to see it as sort of this thing. I drive into Mexico, I see me, it's funny. Now I just think about them totally differently. And that was just, they probably spent a tenth of what the people next door with a crazy technology immersive thing they had. And there was no lines, and 30 people could do it at the same time. It was just very smart, I think.
Wow, thank you for sharing. And pharmacies are huge in Mexico, so they
Yeah.
sell anything. Awesome. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for that. We have a couple minutes, so if you can just share with us how people can find you, support you, and anything you can want to tease about what's coming up for you.
Sure. I mean, you go to bananafoundry.com is probably the most direct, easiest way to find me. You can find me on LinkedIn. The stuff that I could tease is that crazy PUBG thing that I showed you a second ago. We're working with somebody that was not PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds or that publisher. It's somebody else in the space that I'm excited about showing soon. I would say follow the stuff that I post on LinkedIn because it changes by the week, and I fast follow stuff in the industry. But I work with a lot of brands and organizations on various aspects of what they're trying to do with their products and marketing. In the game space, it's much more focused on marketing and go-to-market. And in the SaaS software space, it's more about product management and production. But you get a flavor of what I do by looking at my site and LinkedIn and DM me, and happy to jump on a call or whatever is useful to people doing interesting stuff.
Love it. Thank you so much, Matt. I want to really thank you for your time, your insights, and for the work you put in to make this very engaging and interactive as we talk about interactive experiences. This was awesome. And almost none of the insights you shared had been repeat, and you were just uniquely you and authentic. And that's really amazing. Thank you so much for that. And I want to thank our of course. Thank you. And thank to our amazing audience who stayed with us for an hour. I know you all are busy, and this is really valuable in this day and age where our attention is all over. Thank you, Dodge, Shadi, Ian, Onomi, John, Felipe, and everyone else who will be following, the recording and, always coming back every Tuesday. Next week, we have an amazing creator who has made a movie with generative AI by himself. And he is very creative, and definitely we want to check that out. And we continue hosting great talents like Matt on this show. Thank you so much, all of you, for your time. Thank you, Matt. Have a lovely rest of your day. Bye.